Mike Evans will officially not hit the open market in 2024. So today on the Chiefs Report, we're going to go through the next top 5 wide receiver free agents I could see Kansas City signing. We appreciate you hanging out with us right here on the Chiefs Report. I'm your host, Jay Sanders, and you see it right here, 2-year, $52 million deal. The extension for Mike Evans, it gets him to stay in Tampa Bay. But now, well, KC, what are you going to do next? That's what we talk about on today's show, the what's next for Brett Veach, Andy Reid, and everybody in Kansas City to try and figure out, okay, T. Higgins is gone. Mike Evans is gone. Now, who do we go after to help bolster up this wide receiver room that really struggled in 2023? All right, before we go, though, I want to ask you the question. We're going to talk about all 3 of these receivers on today's show. I want you to pick one for the Chiefs to sign. Michael Pittman Jr., type P, Calvin Ridley, type R, or Marquise Brown, type B. Get in the comment section, let me know, P, R, or B for Pittman, Ridley, or Brown. Which wide receiver are you picking for the Chiefs to sign? Let's first start with Michael Pittman Jr. because obviously now that Mike Evans is gone, I would probably label Pittman as the top wide receiver in this year's free agency class. Now, I think it really boils down to him having a really good 2023 season. Because, yeah, he had done great in times past, but I think one of his best years was this past season. He had 16 games played, over 1,000 yards. The first time that he had ever had more than 100 receptions. His average was good. The touchdowns were down, but, I mean, if you look at his past stats and his history in the NFL, he never really was a touchdown scoring guy. And honestly, if he plays for the Chiefs, they don't need him to be a touchdown scoring guy. They need him to do exactly what he's been doing, having those good yardages throughout the season and getting a lot of receptions. We could see in 2021, 2022, and 2023, he was right around the 100 reception mark, obviously breaking it this past year. Now, obviously, I would love Pittman to be on Kansas City because he brings a lot of positives. First of all, his agility is honestly one of the best things he brings. He can move quickly, and I think one of the things that maybe the Chiefs were missing last year is just a simple guy to be able to go deep, or someone could go in, because they never really had somebody who was able to do both. It was Rashee Rice doing the screens, going inward, doing all that, and then MVS would go streak deep. You never saw Rashee Rice streak deep. Well, guess what? Michael Pittman Jr. could do both. He could streak deep, or he could potentially go on in routes, cut routes, screen routes, whatever you need, he can get it done. Now, in terms of contract-wise, well, this is why he becomes the top guy on the market. 4 years for $90 million plus is what it's going to cost the Kansas City Chiefs. And obviously, they don't have a ton of money, and this would be a very, player-friendly contract over team-friendly contract. But at the same time, you're trying to help your wide receiver room in any way possible. So if you could talk to him, just see what he'd be willing to do. And obviously, you have a lot of money. You could kind of maneuver around restructuring Mahomes' contract, restructuring Jawan Taylor. You're obviously not going to keep L'Jarius Sneed. Lots of things you can kind of do to help free up some space. Now, as much as I like him, I think there are better value options out there. Obviously, him being the top wide receiver in this class, it's going to make his, value go up more than it probably should. I think the better value option honestly goes to the secondary guy, and that'd be Calvin Ridley, who drops substantially as the number 2 guy in the wide receiver class. 4 years, $68.2 million is the Spotrac contract suggestion, and I think he's probably around there. Maybe 4 years, $60 million, just because he didn't really play in 2022. In fact, he didn't play at all. He had the whole suspension with gambling and obviously stepped away from football at the time. I mean, he played 5 games through 2 seasons before finally coming back this year and playing 17 games, although he had over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. But we've seen what Calvin Ridley can do in his career, and we saw just the type of player that he is able to kind of bring himself to be whenever he needs it most. We saw the streak routes he ran with Jacksonville and was able to really get downfield at any time. Now, he had some drop problems, which obviously I don't really want to get a guy who has drop problems, but at the same time, I think he brings a lot of positives. In some ways, he kind of seems destined to be a Chief. I mean, you just think about the wide receivers they've had in their past. Kadarius Toney, you have Marquise Brown, you have Tyreek Hill, you have this guy who had this gambling problem. He stepped away from football. It just, the problems surrounding him just never exactly fit the bill. And now, well, guess what? He's kind of got those subdued. Come join Kansas City, could potentially be a Super Bowl winning wide receiver within the next couple years. I ask you the question, would you like the Chiefs to sign Calvin Ridley for the 2024 season? I want you to let me know down in the comment section down below. Type Y for yes. Type in for no. Is there somebody that you'd rather, or is this the guy you think I want the Chiefs to get in 2024? All right, so obviously the first free agent being Michael Pittman. Then we have the second guy past Pittman being Calvin Ridley. But who is going to be third? Who's the guy that we had at the beginning of the show? It's Marquise Brown, and we'll talk about him and why I think that he could potentially be one of the most undervalued 2024 free agents in this entire class, not just the wide receivers. But I do want to make sure you're subscribed because we are now over 53,000 strong here on the Chiefs Report, and I want you to join it because I'm telling you, the Raiders Report host Mitchell Wrench just keeps getting on me about how the Chiefs are never going to be good. This channel's going to be so much worse. Well, I want to prove him wrong, and I want to bolster the subscriber number an insane amount this offseason. We're trying to get to 60K. I'd certainly appreciate it if you join the fight right here and hit that subscribe button and tell Mitchell Wrench on the Raiders Report to absolutely screw it. But I appreciate you. YouTube.com/ChiefsTV. Or you can scroll down, little red subscriber button, press that, it'll turn gray. Boom, you're subscribed to one of the fastest growing Chiefs channels on all of YouTube. Let's talk about Marquise Brown here. He is a speedster, and I think that's why he is kind of undervalued. Obviously, playing in Arizona the past few years, he hasn't gotten his full, stats is the way you could say it because he's played with a couple different quarterbacks. Kyler Murray was not one of those for a certain amount of time. He had Clayton Tune and Josh Dobbs at some point. Now, he's also under 30 right now. He's only 26 years old. Will turn 27 this December. And he honestly is a relatively cheap option that has a lot of upside. Obviously, his stats don't match Calvin Ridley. His stats don't match Michael Pittman Jr. But his stats could match those guys in a lot of things. And he honestly fits the Chiefs once in a lot of ways. What do you mean? Well, his price tag. He's about 4 years, $59.5 million, which was pretty on par with what the Chiefs are probably willing to spend. And I think what the bigger thing he does is its speed. We've talked about the speed that the Chiefs like. You talk about John Ross, Justin Ross. Rashee Rice had some speed. That's why they went and got him in the second round and made a trade up to. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had speed. That's why they try and got him. Tyreek Hill. Speed in the wide receiver room is something that Brett Veach values, maybe even more than he probably should. But that's exactly why Marquise Brown could fit with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I mentioned this past year wasn't exactly his greatest, but I will tell you, he didn't play the entire season. Obviously, only 14 games. Now, it's still a good amount, but you talk about his quarterbacks. Josh Dobbs, Clayton Tune, and then Kyler Murray, who came back, but I don't really think Kyler Murray is all that great of a passing QB. 11.3 in the average, 101 targets, 51 receptions. Overall, these are pretty decent stats for what he had to put up. And again, this is not the guy that we have seen in the league for the past 4 years. He's been putting up a lot better stats. Talking about 2022, when he played only 12 games, he had 709 yards. And then, obviously, his best year of his career, which got him into Arizona, funny enough, 1,000 yards back in 2021. But that average still sticking around the 11, 10, and then obviously got up to 13 in 2020. He has been a really solid wide receiver in the NFL for pretty much his entire time in the league. I would like to see him in the Kansas City Red. All right, we're going to talk about Gabe Davis as our fourth option because the Chiefs killer, the guy who always seems to have a good game when he plays Kansas City, except for this year. Well, let's hope we don't have to see him in any type of Buffalo Bill blue anymore anytime soon. It could potentially be in Kansas City as soon as 2024. This past year was one of his, I'm going to say, lower years. It wasn't exactly a bad year by any stretch of the imagination. His average was great, 16.6, had 7 touchdowns, 746. But as Gabe Davis goes, he has one game where he is amazing. He has another game where he literally stinks. If you play fantasy football, you know that you have to start him because he could always get 20 points. But if you don't, man, oh man, he's going to get 20 points for sure. Now, Davis's contract is going to be around 4 years, $54 million, according to Spotrac, which, again, is not exactly the biggest price tag to pay for a guy who has really high upside. I just talked about it. Any game of the year, you could see him potentially pop off and go get 100-plus yards, 3 touchdowns. He's done it against the Chiefs multiple times. And I would kind of be curious to see if Brett Veach would explore this option because in terms of favorited teams, the Chiefs are one of them for Gabe Davis. His past 4 seasons have been really solid. 800 yards back in 2022, having his best year, 7 touchdowns. But you see there, you look at those touchdown totals, and they never reflect the yardage change. Like, obviously, 549 in 2021, barely under 600 in 2020, yet every single year, 7 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns. The average, again, 17.1, 15.7, 17.4, 16.6. This guy's averages are really good and fit the bill for what the Chiefs are looking for in a lot of different ways. Now, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's somebody that you want the Chiefs to sign that I haven't talked about. Or maybe there's one of those 4s that you absolutely have to have and you want on Kansas City squad in 2024. Well, now's your time to let me know because if you have someone in mind, go down there and let me know. Name a wide receiver you would want the Chiefs to sign in 2024? Go down, get in the comment section. I'm looking, I'm seeing, and hey, if you find somebody that's interesting, maybe we'll make a whole video on them. Just like this next guy, Darnell Mooney, who we're going to talk about probably in another video very soon because he's been linked to the Chiefs heavily, and so I really want to kind of focus on him. But wanted to throw him at the back end here just because I don't want to say that he's necessarily a top wide receiver free agent target, but he has been linked to the Chiefs as a top team in terms of teams to watch for his free agency season here in 2024. Now, obviously, Darnell Mooney has kind of always been, in my mind, undervalued. If you watch this show, you know my opinion on him. I think he's always just never had that chance to shine. He's been the number 2 for as long as you can know. He's at DJ Moore. He's at Allen Robinson. But I think he has the skills. This past year, it was a strugglesome year for him. 414 yards, 1 touchdown, 13.4 on the average. But I think that's exactly why he could fit the bill for the Chiefs. Because, guess what? Given that he had not so great of a year this past year, his contract's going to be nice. In fact, right now, it's going to be around 4 years, $41.9 million, which is honestly right where the Chiefs would probably like to pay. Now, I don't know if they'd give him 4 years, maybe a 2-year deal, 3-year deal, kind of like Marquise Brown and probably push a bunch of it to the back end, similar to the MVS contract, where if they needed to, they could cut him in 2 years and save a bunch of money. But I think overall, Darnell Mooney has a lot of positives that I think nobody has gotten to see because he's always been the number 2. He's had some drop problems, but again, the one thing that people quote in terms of his drop problems for this past season was the Hail Mary attempt where it kind of bounced into his hands, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, he dropped it, he should have caught it. Like, listen, I understand him in the hands, but at the same time, I'm not expecting to be sitting on the ground and a ball to hit me in the chest and I'm supposed to catch it. It doesn't really make sense to me, and I feel like he was kind of ripped to shreds for something that really wasn't his fault. I would love to see him with Kansas City because I think you pair him up with Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, this wide receiver room becomes a lot more deadly, and he's favored to be landing with Kansas City. We'll have a full video kind of on that detailed report later on in the week, possibly even today, which is why you should subscribe because we're putting out Chiefs content every single day of the week. And when the Chiefs do sign a wide receiver, I know it's coming, we're going to have a video. Obviously, free agency is just a week away, so make sure you're hitting that sub button because whenever something happens, we have you covered right here on the Chiefs Report. We appreciate you as always. Hit that subscribe button. And for now,